Greetings and welcome to Creative Briefing, an ad hoc internet live stream show where I try and encourage you to explore the better side of your humanity and be creative. So my name's Adam. As you can probably tell from the logo splashed everywhere on the interface, I run Influxx Media Production, and I'm trying to share with you my fellow creatives or fellow aspiring creatives the benefits of 30 years of experience in advertising, marketing and media. And I like to touch upon, many different aspects of creativity, because creativity comes in many shapes and sizes, whether it's illustration, photography, design, whether it's digital tools, analog tools, sketching, storyboarding, even some sort of DIY crafty stuff, or especially music. I have a great passion for music. I've been a musician for over 40 years, so it's a great fun world. It's easier than ever for creatives to use music as a hobby, or to even make it something more serious than a hobby. Let's just leave it at that. So today it's Friday, but it isn't really a Friday fun thing. I'm not going to be demonstrating an instrument per se, but it is music related. It's still really fun, and it's a great tool that is going to help musicians or budding musicians, or people just with a sort of tangential interest in music, help their compositions, help them understand music, especially, theoretically and sort of practically performance-wise. I'm going to be looking at music notation, which is the written language of music. It's a hard nut to crack. It's music notation, but composing with music notation will kind of up your game, and it will definitely help you understand this concept a lot more. Now I speak for myself. I do not sight read music. I'm not classically trained in any way, and having found this tool, which is free, completely free to use, it's massively deep and massively detailed and functional. So it's helped me understand a little bit more the sort of theory side of things, shall we say, and helping to understand reading some of the notation. So I have my trusty Arturia key step plugged into the system, so I can enter notes in a manner that I'm more familiar with. You don't need this. You can enter it with a mouse, and I'll be demonstrating how to enter notes into the software, which I'll introduce to you in a second. So you can, if you're familiar with playing keys, you can enter notes and it will capture those notes over MIDI, which is really easy to do. Or you can just enter it with a mouse click, or even with a keyboard. There's lots of keyboard shortcuts which are really great. So the software is MuseScore. MuseScore, all one word, and the so MuseScore.com is where you can get it, and you can download the software for free, and it's regularly updated, well maintained. I'm not sure if it's open source. I don't feel it's open source, but it is regularly updated, and it's completely free. Now there is a freemium model there. It is free to use the software and do everything you want with the software, but what you pay for is to be part of the community. Upload your scores, download other scores, certain things like that. So I don't know, a lot of teachers will use this to share with their students. I use it for teaching. I teach guitar and bass and sort of synth electronic music, and I use it for some really, really basic stuff. I mean, I'll admit I'm a very basic user of MuseScore. It was my son, in fact, who introduced me to MuseScore. He is in jazz band and marching band in high school, and he found this, and he writes jazz compositions that he shares with his friends. And I believe maybe his teacher shares stuff with them, which is why the paid model comes in. You can actually have a, sort of lot of teaching aids and stuff like that. I really don't use the sort of teaching aids. I use the free model, and that's sufficient for me. Like I said, I'm a very basic user. Just know that that option is there if that's you. The software, for free, it's absolutely incredible. So if I just cut to the chase and boot up MuseScore real quick. And you're greeted with this splash screen when it first launches, and you on the right here you usually get some kind of internet connected link that takes you to some news updates, or in this case it's like a online course. Their actually training is pretty good. They've got a lot of content on YouTube, so learning the program is pretty straightforward. You're not left on your own, and you've got other here on the other window you've got like other scores that you've recently opened, or you can create a new score. So I'm just going to open a one of the recent scores, and I'm getting this notification. There is an update. I updated maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and yet there's another update. So it's really well maintained. So this is something I just wrote in very basic. As again I said, I'm a very basic user, but it's still really helpful and a great tool to have, that I create for my bass and guitar students. And you can connect your instruments. You can put tab. As you can see, I've got tab bars here, and you've got treble clef, bass clef. You have absolute control. You can, add all these symbols. You can style and format your score so it's sort of not branded, but they're consistent, and you can save those as styles. There's no limit to pages. You have, as well as the overall sheet, you can break each instrument out into its own part that you can then distribute to your band. So if you're the composer, you can have the bird's eye view of everything, and then you can break out the guitar and bass, and then I can hand those individual sheets out to those musicians. And if you've got a large orchestra, obviously that's super helpful and super important. My son, obviously, like I said, is in jazz band, and he writes these jazz quartet and septet pieces, and he can then break out the composition into the individual instruments and then send those out to his bandmates. So really cool. So let's start looking at a completely blank new score. Okay, so let me just bring this over just a tad. So the first thing, obviously, let's take a look at the interface. At the top here, you've got new, save, upload to the internet, print, those sorts of things. You can zoom and scale your page sizes. 100% or fit is page width is usually pretty good. You don't use any kind of keyboard shortcuts for moving. You just kind of grab anywhere and move it. So you've got to kind of be careful. Sometimes you can grab something and move that, which you don't want to do. So but generally you can just kind of grab anywhere and set the page. Page fitting and viewing isn't the best. It'd be nice if you could do like on, say, Adobe products where Command or Control-0 just fits everything. You've got page view, you've got continuous view where it's just one long infinite white void with sheet music on it, and then you've got single page, which is just one continuously scrolling page. Find page view to be makes the most sense for my sort of meager needs. Tabs open up. You can have as many scores open as you like. We'll cross underneath the main sort of buttons at the top. You have a second row, and this is where all the sort of note inputs are. So this button here is the note enter notes, and you can just click on that and it goes blue. Then that's where you can start entering notes, and you see this blue sort of highlight here where you are sort of temporarily in the bar or the measure. Now a good shortcut is that N will toggle that button on, so you don't have to be sort of picking up the mouse and clicking a lot. So you can hit N to enter note enter mode, and then you can start entering notes, and I'll get to that in a second. Now under note enter mode you have obviously different methods or different modes of note entering. We can have repitch. If you have a score that's already done, you can then just go through and maybe play on the keys a different. So maybe you're doing a harmony. The one instrument has been written. You can then copy that bar and then just re-pitch it to be, to playing the thirds or the sevenths or something, harmony notes. So you can create harmonies with that sort of instrument, but keeping the actual rhythm the same. Rhythm is the opposite of that. You can change the rhythm, but keeping the sort of pitch content. Real time means you can hit record and play like you would maybe in a digital audio workstation like Cubase or Logic. Real time manual. It's similar, but I think it says with a pedal or a key you can set up like a hotkey to sort of manually advance each step. So it's like step time, and then insert, which is useful in certain cases, but for the most time I find it messes the score up, because say you've written 4 bars and you've got all the notes in and you want to think, oh, I'd rather insert something there. It ends up shuffling everything down, and it just kind of makes more of a mess than it really helps. I've never found that to be particularly useful. The ones that are really useful is real time, repitch, and step time. Step time is what I find myself using 95% of the time. And then we have our note inputs, starting with whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16ths. Those are the notes I find myself using the most. I don't really dig down to here into 64th notes. Then we've got dotted, double dotted, and again, use those occasionally. Then we've got slurs and ties, you've got rests, and then you've got your accidentals, flats, sharps, naturals, etc. So, and many of those have keyboard shortcuts that you can then apply. So you're really, again, not taking your hand off the keys. You can, tap, 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 and enter notes quickly in step input. And of course, you can always play step input or real-time input on the keyboard. Now over here on the left side, you have the pallets, and the pallets you have every single clef available: key signatures, time signatures, brackets, accidentals, articulations, so on and so forth. Lines, bar lines. Text is good because you can add staff text in there. You can also add lyrics to this as well, and there's a great. I won't get into that today. Again, this program can do a lot, and this won't be a creative briefing. It will be a creative news masterclass at that point. So I'm just going to try and skim over the surface. But lyrics. If you're writing pop songs, you can compose and then add the lyrics and then again distribute that to your bandmates. So all kinds of, it's obviously, I wouldn't say geared towards the classical musician, but it definitely caters to it in every sense to a symphonic composer, because it has everything in there that they might need. Fantastic. To consider, I think its competition, or its most famous competition, is Sibelius, which is quite expensive. Cubase has a score mode, Cubase Pro, which is, again, it's inexpensive. It's not something trivial that the casual user can download and play with. I've never really I use Cubase for composing, but I don't really use the score side of it. Found it to be a bit clumsy and not as intuitive as this. So let's finish up looking at the interface. On the right side here we have the Modal Inspector, and that is whatever you have selected. It's going to give you contextual options to change the formatting, positioning, that sort of thing, kind of the visual presentation of that item. And again, much of which you can avoid having to click and position and change fonts over here by going to Format, Style, and I mean, look at these options. This is just the style preferences, and with it you have all these preferences, and then you have the text style preferences. So it's like preferences within preferences. This is how deep the program is, and you can do all that, and then save that style, which is what I have done, and then every time you create a new piece you can attach that style to it, so it saves a lot of clicking around in formatting. So let's just do some simple note entry, just so you can get a quick idea of how this works. I'm going to hit N from note enter, and I'm just going to do some simple quarter notes, and let's just add just an ascending so just something, you know, very simple. And let's hit N to turn off note edit, and if I click anywhere in the bar, now I've selected the whole bar, and I can Command C, and I can click here, then paste that very easily. And then I can go to my bar lines, and I can just drag the repeats and put that here, and now so it's not going to win any symphonic Oscars or anything, but you get the idea. I can just quickly click and place my notes. Now, once I'm not, see, when note mode is active, and you get this blue highlight, and this note icon is blue, make sure that's turned off. Now I can select this note, and I can then repitch it. Okay, so you can repitch stuff. Also, if I select one of these notes, and you can see it's a quarter note, I can then select eighth note, and it will turn that into an eighth note, and it's added an eighth note rest here, which I can then, I can't actually click anywhere to make that a note. So what I'm going to have to do is go back into note edit mode, and then add my note, and I can click on a note and change it, and it will do that. So I can select So it's evidently very easy and quick to click and enter notes, and if you're not musically trained, or if you're not sure what any of these notes mean, you can by ear select the notes and then just manipulate them with the keyboard until you find something you like, at the very, very least. Obviously, the more you understand about music, the easier that will become. And playing all this will, of course, help you understand that music. And there is lots and lots of music theory educational sites on the internet that I've found really useful, and musictheory.net is one that comes right to mind. Tons of resources on there for learning what all these little symbols mean. But MuseScore really helps in that regard. So let's Hit N for no enter mode. This time I'm going to use the keys, and I can use, if you can see this on camera, I can use the keyboard, the keys on the keypad here to select notes. I can so 6 will be like a 7 will be a whole note, 6 will be a half note, 5 is a quarter note, 4th, 8th, 16th, and so on. So this middle row here is really useful for halves, quarters, and eighth notes, which I find myself using the most, at least as far as teaching my students. So I find this middle, have my hand on these keys all the time. So I can click, and turn off no enter again, Command C. A nice shortcut is if I just select this bar rather than having to Command C and Command V 3 times. If I just hit R, it will just do that for me. I've hit R 3 times and it's copied and pasted that first bar 3 times. Now I can go back and so I can set my bar here and so what's great about the keyboard shortcuts, I can select this note and I can change it. If I select a note and then hit the corresponding key on the keypad, I change its note duration. And then I can select that, and if I select this note, I can change that to a rest by hitting 0. That turns it into a rest. But okay, so let's just, with the sort of 2 phrases we've created here, as cheesy and hokey and slightly crappy they are, let's take a look at what else we can do. We can edit the instruments. And so here we have our master sort of instrument setup and what staffs, what staves we have, and so once an instrument is created, you can't really change the instrument here, but what you can do is, let's see, strings plucked, let's put acoustic guitar, I'm going to add this, and then I'm going to select, here's the trick, this is what it took me a long time to figure out every time when I was trying to get this set up. If I select the staff, then I select Tablature, I can add a linked staff. So now I have the acoustic guitar instrument, I have 2 linked staffs, which means if I enter a note on one of them, the exact note will be entered on the other one. So it's just a different way of looking. The staff type, I'm going to put tab 6 string simple. And if you're not a guitarist, tablature is just a different way of looking at music notation, I suppose. It's non-traditional in the sort of classical sense, but I'll show you. Tablature. Oh, you know why? I just caught myself doing that. That is terrible user interface design. Maybe that indicates that it is open source. Right, I'd never noticed that before. That is acoustic guitar, add, select the staff, tablature, add linked staff. The OK, as a user interface designer, you know, left is back, right is proceed. So having the cancel button on the right, there's a little gotcha there. That is just terrible interface design. Maybe it's designed in a country that reads left, like in the Middle East or something. Maybe that's where this comes from, I don't know. But in Western societies, we read left to right, so there's a natural progression left to right. So the rightmost button tends to be next, proceed. So psychologically, that's how we have, grown up. So that's a little gotcha right there. There, some strange UI quirks. So anyway, back to the user interface, that's a topic I should cover at some point, actually, user interface design. But today's lesson we're talking about music notation. So you can see now I've got the piano on this one big staff. I've got piano, and let me go back and edit my instruments again. I didn't make that tab 6 string simple. Don't do that again. There we go. So tab, it gives you an indication, a line for each string on the guitar. On the piano it'll have, on the bass guitar it'll have 4 lines. And then, so for example, if I then go to here, hit N, and I start adding some, let's just add some 8th notes. And so I can even, while I'm in no enter mode, I can click, and if I make a mistake, I can sort of edit on the fly. So what we see here, if I turn off no edit for a second, you can see I have entered the notes on the notation, but also the tablature has shown me what fret, which is 3, and what string, which is the 4th string. So the 3rd fret of the 4th string, then the open 3rd string, and then the 1st fret on the 2nd string. And so if I select this and hit play, okay, so that doesn't make much sense because it's not in harmony with the, actually just fortuitously it happened to be, I guess because I'm just clicking C major scale, everything. So we can add, well, let's just carry on talking about tab for a second, just real briefly. So I can modify the tab again by pressing the up and down arrows, and I'm basically going up and down the frets. If I go to 0, I can't go any lower than that. If I hit Command and go 0, it's going to say play the same note, you know, on the lower string. So I can select everything, Command that, and now I've played everything on the 3rd and 5th frets here. So I have that sort of control. Doesn't change the pitch of the notes, nothing changed up here. It's just changing how it's designed to be played on the guitar, or the bass, or ukulele, you know, whatever instrument you set up. So that's pretty useful. I can then take the tie. Oh, let's see, ties usually works. If I take this and hit R to repeat this, now I can add a tie that's going to tie these two. So basically it turns this 8th note into a quarter note across this bar line. So that's a tie. I can also take the rest. Oops, I didn't want to do that. But if you click any of these when a note is selected, it's going to change that to that whenever you're clicking on. So let's add a rest there. Now it's going to turn that to a rest. Lines, where are slurs? Is that slur? That's a slur. So I can click and drag a slur over, let's do it over the first bar. And I can, actually let me just select that and double click it. There we go. So this slur will play these 8 notes smoothly, as if they sort of blend into one. I'm not sure if the so it's not really, it's harder for to hear that in the MIDI. Obviously this is really like a MIDI programming, and it's got some built-in MIDI sounds which, you know, aren't fantastic. I believe they are sound font files and they're part of the download. I'm not sure if they use any built-in Apple or Windows sounds. I'm assuming this comes on Windows. I believe there is a Windows version. I think I've seen video tutorials that are using the Windows platform. But I stand to be corrected on that. But I'm not sure if it uses any sort of sound libraries that are included with the operating system install. I believe it uses the sound font format, so it is possible to download other sound libraries. I have seen video tutorials on that. I've never done it myself, but I know that option, you can get higher quality. Some of the compositions my son has done that involve several instruments, brass and woodwind, sound remarkably, I would say lifelike, but remarkably acceptable, and quite impressive for a free program. So again, I don't know if those are the sound fonts that MuseScore downloads. And of course, the playback sort of nuances. I'm not sure, there's a mixer somewhere. Let's see, view, spaces. We'll take a look at these a little bit in a second. Our mixer. So you can view the pallets. You can, and that will hide the side. There is a master palette which has, like, if we look down, each of these pallets has a more, and there's a couple of like lesser used items in that category. If we view the master palette, it has everything under the sun man understands in the music, music language. The inspector is there on the left side. You can toggle that. Play, it's just like a playback controls with a sort of very basic mixer, play, rewind, loop, that sort of thing. You can pop these out and move them to a different monitor, or position them anywhere you want. The Navigator has just like a sort of touchpad where you can sort of drag, and if you've got a large score, you can quickly all the way down, to wherever you're trying to get to. Let's just reposition that. What else do we have? Behind the Navigator, we have a timeline, which is kind of like a sort of MIDI piano roll, but it's got, you can see tempo, time signature, other sort of marks that we can view here. And if you've got a large composition, you might want to pop this out on its own window and put it on another monitor, so you can get a good overview of your composition. Then it has a more typical mixer, and this is something you might find again in Cubase or Logic. But you can rename your tracks. You can choose the voice, the actual voice you want to play with. So let's change the piano to an electric piano. We'll change the acoustic guitar to let's say overdrive guitar. Why not? If I play back now, the sound should be. They're fairly cheesy as sort of a general MIDI sort of sound. Like I said, it is possible to go through and play with them and nuance them a little bit, and then you can bring them maybe into, you can get ahead of myself here, you can export these sounds and then you can maybe bring them into another software package where you can add effects to, warm them up or make them a bit more lifelike, a bit more lively, add some reverb and delay and things like that. So it's definitely not unusable, even for sort of music production, at a very sort of basic level. So you can change the sounds. So that was with the mixer. Pretty cool. Volume pan, that sort of thing. You can mute, and we can even add reverb and chorus right here. What else did I want to look at? How long have we been going here? Oh wow, it's been over 45 minutes already. So let's wrap up really quickly. So, like I said, I can go to File, Parts, and if I add all the parts, now I've got the piano and the acoustic guitar, and what that does is now it breaks out all the piano and all the guitar into their own instruments. And again, if you've got a large orchestra, obviously this becomes a massive time saver. You can print out just the parts for your solo violinists, trombonists, whatever it might be. For formatting, another useful tool here is add remove system breaks. System breaks is like, you know, the number of measures you want to fit to a bar. 4 seems to be like a really good, easy one because it's nice and easy to read, especially for, you know, beginning students, more advanced students. Obviously, they won't have so much trouble reading notes that are really crammed together. Some of the stuff my son does, there are notes jammed in there, but that's a useful formatting tool to have. So once again, let's go format, add system breaks. That's already set to 4, so let's, if I do 2, and it kind of breaks it up nice and big. So that's a great teaching aid, you know, when you're teaching very, very beginning students to understand what music notation does. So I can solo the instruments effectively by just looking at their individual part and playing back the. So that's the parts. Real quick, we can, you know, you save, and it's going to save it as a score. And you save it to your scores folder in your user folder, in my documents, wherever that might be, and it saves it as the MCSC format. And you can also save online. That's what I was talking about, part of the freemium model. If you have an account and you pay to be part of the MuseScore community, you can save online and do it straight from the software right here. That won't work obviously without being logged in, but you can export. And there's lots of formats you can export in. PDF, obviously most useful, then you can distribute the sheet music, take it to the printer, to hand it out to your bandmates, your fellow musicians. That's really cool. PNGs, if you want raster versions. You can export Wav files, again using the built-in MIDI files, and I do this for my students. I will create a simple exercise, I'll render it out to a Wav file and send them, this is what it should sound like. So when you're trying to connect what those black dots on the music staff mean to actual sound, I find it a great resource for helping them, and for, you know, takes zero effort just saving out a file. So I send them the sheet music and I send them the Wav, and it really helps them connect that the two elements together, the notation and the music. You can export FLAC, OGG Vorbis, MP3, standard MIDI file, also really useful. I can compose, you know, especially if you're a visual composer, you can compose stuff like you might be more experienced doing that, and then you can import that into your DAW, your Cubase or Logic, and then add a really high quality synth sound to it. Or some, you know, a sampled orchestra. There's some really fantastic, like Spitfire Labs or Spitfire Audio. The labs, they're free. I should do a tutorial on this one day. Spitfire do some really high quality sample libraries of the BBC Orchestra one comes to mind real quick. But you could export the MIDI, bring that into, you know, into your workstation, and patch that through to, say, Spitfire Audio's BBC Orchestra, Symphony Orchestra, and then you've got an incredibly realistic score that you created in your notation software. So really, really cool. I use the MIDI file all the time for composing little things. I want to sort of figure out, you know, the note structure and timing structure, and then bring that into Cubase. Then we've got some other XML and other sort of notation files, maybe that you can share with other notation software. All right, well that has sort of scratched the surface of MuseScore. I'm not sure I did a great service with the sort of crappy little tune we created here, but hopefully it gives you an idea of what's possible and how quickly and easy it is to enter and create. And then if you're not musically inclined, if you're never been trained classically, but you want to explore, you always wanted to learn, you know, how to read music, this is be a great resource to teach yourself by trial and error, by clicking and then readjusting those notes Really great resource, MuseScore.com. Download it for free. It's the weekend. Set yourself a little homework. Download MuseScore and write some music. So that has been Creative Briefing. I've been your host, Adam, and thank you for watching. If you stuck with it to the end here, thanks for watching. If you're watching on the replay on YouTube, thanks for watching. Either way, if you got something out of this, if you found it useful, if you enjoyed it, if you found it entertaining or informational, please consider thumbing up, liking, or even subscribing, and ringing that bell on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. I try and do these 2-3 times a week, so and they're all across the board: music, art, design, everything. So try and keep that creative mind engaged, and stay positive, make smart decisions, be creative, and I will see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.